Today's topic, I wanted to discuss retiring at age 62 and why that's an important age to be mindful of. The first thing is Social Security income. So an individual might be nearing age 62 and saying, okay, this is my ideal retirement date because I know that I can start pulling Social Security income at age 62. Now be mindful, if you trigger Social Security income at age 62, you're going to be receiving less of a benefit than if you wait until your full retirement age, maybe 65, 66 and 2/3, age 67. It's really based on that individual's specific date of birth and then what that full retirement age, the FRA, has been projected out to. So whenever you're looking to retire and create any sort of retirement plan, if you're a couple years out from retirement or if you're currently retired, how to stay retired forever, there's three main areas that you need to cover. So I'm going to break down all three of those main areas and then what are some different minutia within those areas. So the first thing is income. Are your income sources greater than or equal to your expenses when you're hitting age 62? At age 62, if that's not the case, well, then you might have to work a little bit longer. You might have to reduce what your expenses are. And there's a slew of different things to make sure that that mathematical component can ultimately match up with each other. And it's really simple. At the end of the day, it's just math. So don't try to overcomplicate it. A really easy way to understand how your budgeting analysis works or how your expenses work when you hit that ideal retirement date is an acronym that I'm taking from a different advisor. It's called the acronym of MUG, M-U-G. Your mortgage, your utilities, and your groceries. Do you have a mortgage when you're going to be throughout retirement, or is your mortgage going to be paid off? If it's going to be paid off, is it going to be paid off at age 62, or is that going to be paid off in a couple more years, maybe at age 65 or 67? So understand how that mortgage expense works. Utilities, your everyday expenses, your everyday monthly expenses, your utilities kind of be lumped in with a couple different things, your lawn care, your cell phone bill, different things like that, your utilities of your home. What are those expenses, a roundabout number? And then your groceries. Are you going to be, eating out constantly? What are your weekly groceries? And then multiply that by 4, kind of come up with some sort of mathematical component to figure out what the combination of your mortgage, your utilities, and your groceries are. Now, we help individuals get a little bit more detailed on that, meaning that, okay, let's really look underneath the hood and find out specifically what are your expenses, because there might be some little things hidden that you may not be accustomed to. Maybe there's an additional expense that's coming out. Maybe you promised a grandkid or your child that you're going to be paying for their college, so you're going to help out with those student loans. Whatever that case might be, it's all about getting to what that monthly number is, and then basically creating it, multiplying it by 12 to get that annual number. Once you know what that annual number is, then it says, okay, this is my baseline. This is what I have to get to every single day, every single year to make sure that I'm hitting my retirement expenses or hitting my expenses, so that you can look at your other sources to match up what those expenses are. So case in point, let's say that we're going through somebody's budgeting analysis and we understand that they have $60,000 of expenses every year that they have to hit as a bare bones minimum. At age 62, they're going to be collecting Social Security income. Maybe that's going to be generating them 25, 30,000, we'll call it 30,000. So you have 30,000 coming from some sort of guaranteed income source, but it's not going to be quite at that 60,000 marker. If we look underneath the hood and we say, okay, are there any other assets that are generating some sort of income? Do they have rental properties that's receiving some sort of income? Do they have a spouse and the spouse has some sort of pension? Do they have a pension? So pension's very good, because if you're offered a pension plan through your employer, which unfortunately the majority of individuals are not offered pension plans, that's another type of guaranteed income source that you could leverage towards your specific formula. So let's say if somebody is receiving $30,000 of Social Security income at 62, they're able to trigger their pension at age 62, and their pension is going to generate them another $50,000 of income. Well, the combination of the $50,000 plus the $30,000 of Social Security income is going to bring them $80,000 of cash flow throughout retirement. If their expenses are only $60,000, they've more than closed up what that gap was, and they're able to have a confident retirement. So now that leaves different stages of emergency needs and growth-related needs. Now, unfortunately, it's not that simple. Typically, an individual is not offered a pension plan. Typically, they have more expenses than what their pension plan is and their Social Security income, so that's where they have to go back to the drawing board. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say individual wants to retire at age 62. Let's say they're age 60 right now, and they understand that they're going to be collecting $30,000 from Social Security income, maybe an additional $30,000 from pension income, but their expenses after they're doing all their budgeting analysis comes out to $80,000. So in that example, $30,000 is coming from Social Security, $30,000 is coming from pension income, but there's a gap there of $20,000. Now they have to look underneath their hood. They have to say, okay, well, can I shave off some expenses? Or do I like living this lifestyle? Do I not want to shave off any expenses? Do I not want to change what I'm doing right now? And typically individuals don't. They don't want to be, they look at their ideal retirement date as, this is fun. I've worked my entire life up until this point. I want to retire with confidence. So this is where they would look underneath the hood and they'd say, okay, well, what do I have in savings? What do I have in my checking savings? Maybe I'm going to downsize. I'm going to sell my home, and me and my spouse are going to downsize and have, a smaller home, or maybe a condo, or something that's going to be a little bit more feasible and easy. With that aspect, whatever the individual owes on their home versus what they sell on their home, that's obviously now more dollars that could go into their non-qualified bucket. So that's one bucket. An additional bucket could be if they're working for their employer, or let's say they're still working for their employer and they're age 60 right now and they want to retire at age 62. Well, maybe an individual can have access to something called an in-service rollover, in-service withdrawal, where if they're working for a private institution and that private institution is offering them a 401k plan, that individual could take their 401k account, roll it over to an IRA or multiple IRAs to make sure that now that could be sitting into, think of it like a secondary bucket, that now you could leverage that as a type of income strategy. Another aspect would be if, let's say, somebody was also contributing to Roth IRAs or traditional IRA accounts, or they used old 401k dollars and they rolled those over into traditional IRAs or Roth IRAs. They did conversions. So there's now these little micro buckets that are basically sitting there. So now when we're looking back at ultimately the formula, it says, okay, my income needs to be greater than or equal to what my expenses are throughout retirement. If my income is not there, how do I close this gap? And that's when you're looking at customization. That's when you're looking at specific strategies to close that gap. You could be leveraging different financial tools such as annuities to do it. You could just leaving money in liquid positions, cash positions. You're saying, I don't want to leave this money at risk. I don't want it sitting in a fixed account. I just want to make sure that I'm laddering it out properly, that I'm collecting X amount of dollars. And I know mathematically, if I leave this in a cash position, it's not going to exhaust until I'm 100 years old, as an example, or 120 years old, as an example. Some nest eggs are large enough where they could do that, not place their money into any sort of financial products, financial vehicles, and be completely fine. We're more about the adage of arbitrage the dollars. Make sure that you have the monies working for you. So, like individual tools in a tool belt, be most efficient, most effective with those dollars. So if we take a step back, let's say that we have an individual that they're retiring at age 62, they're currently age 60. And at age 62, they're going to be receiving Social Security income of $30,000. They're going to be receiving pension income of $30,000, but their expenses are $80,000, and that's ultimately what they're earmarked on. $80,000 is what I need to be completely comfortable in retirement. If let's say they have $200,000 sitting in a non-qualified account, maybe they have another $500,000 sitting in a 401k account, another $100,000 sitting in a Roth IRA account. Well, that's ultimately $800,000 of assets into different qualification periods. 200,000 in the non-qualified, 500,000 is in qualified monies, and then 100,000 is in Roth IRA monies. How to make sure that you're mixing and matching. So maybe in this example, if they're about $20,000 of a shortfall, the individual could take their 401k account, roll a portion of that into an IRA, maybe say out of that 500,000, 200,000 is going into the IRA, and now that IRA is set up with some sort of annuity mechanism that allows them at age 62 to receive lifetime income of $20,000 per year for either them or them and their spouse, really based on your state, based on all the options available to you. So with that mechanism, by leveraging the 200,000 that's sitting in the non-qualified, the 500,000 that was sitting in the 401k, and the 100,000 in the Roth IRA, you only leverage that qualified 401k bucket. You use 200,000 from it, so now that's sitting at 300,000. So now the leftover monies are sitting at 200,000 of the non-qualified, 300,000 in the old 401k account or in the current 401k account, and now you have another 100,000 sitting in Roth. So now when we're looking at those mechanisms, that dropped your total amount of assets from 800,000 down to 600,000. You're still well ahead of the game, because at that age 62, we know that you're receiving the pension income, the Social Security income, and now the annuity income, and all of those are going to total that $80,000 marker of where you have to hit of your baseline. You've at least hit you have at least accomplished your income greater than or equal to your expenses at that point. So then we go on to step two. Step two is an emergency need. So based on if you have specific emergency related expenses that might be forthcoming, or maybe you just want to have peace of mind and say, okay, I understand that my $80,000 is what my annual expenses are. I want to leave about $50,000 just in an emergency need, in a checking savings account, in a money market account, if it's still sitting in a qualified or a Roth IRA, something that's not going to be susceptible to downward market risk. Something that you're not trying to really grow the money, but you just have it easily accessible that you could pull at any point in time. So that could be step two. So maybe, if we kind of take a step back and we say, okay, 600,000 was sitting in the overall assets, maybe out of that 600,000 that was remain, or 800,000 minus 200,000 that's now sitting in the IRA, we have 600,000 total. Out of that, maybe you take 50,000, you leave that in a money market position. And now you have 550,000 left over, and that's where it comes to step three. And step three is the cherry on top. That's the fun monies. That's where now you could say, okay, let me have some fun with this. Maybe out of my 550,000 remaining, I want to be a little bit aggressive with this, or very aggressive with a sliver of these dollars. Maybe I want to place a portion of dollars into a fixed position and just know that unequivocally, if the market goes up or down, this amount of fixed bucket is going to be receiving a fixed rate of return year by year. And then you have another sliver of dollars you could leverage into a protected growth account, something that grows whenever the market index that are linked to it increase, gain 0% whenever the indexes go down, which there's a lot of options available on those protected growth accounts. Unfortunately, you have a lot of bad eggs out there, so you have to be very careful on which tools you use with those specific accounts. So with that sort of situation, whenever you're taking a step back and you're saying, okay, I'm nearing retirement, or maybe I'm currently in a retirement position, how do I make sure that I have confidence in retirement? It's always those three-thing scenario. Step one, income. Make sure your income is greater than or equal to your expenses. If it's not, at that ideal retirement date, you need to fix something. Step two, make sure that I have ample amount of emergency needs. I don't want to go and place monies into a bucket that has some sort of restricted liquidity. I want to make sure that I at least have ample amount of emergency needs that I can access at any given point of time, but you don't want to place too many dollars in there because you do have inflationary risk that could come into play. So that's why you're only placing a sliver into that emergency need, or a specific sliver into that income related need. And then that's where the fund money's coming around growth. And that's where you could say, okay, my growth bucket, you could all place that into one sort of strategy or multitude of different strategies and make sure that they're spliced up correctly. So, based on the 550,000 that's remaining in my example, maybe you're leveraging 150,000, and that's going to be very aggressive. So you're using low-cost mutual funds or low-cost ETFs to really allow it to ebb and flow with the market, because if your 150,000 grows, great. If it goes down, it's not going to hurt you as much because you have all your other areas padded. So now that will leave about 400,000, maybe 200,000 you want to place into fixed accounts, leveraging bank-related products, insurance products, whatever the case is, and another 200,000 to different protected growth accounts, and make sure that you're padding it up correctly. And that's how you're able to properly retire. Now, when you're looking at your situation, unfortunately, a lot of individuals, they can't retire at age 62. Maybe it's just that they have way too much. They're living way above their means. They don't have the amount of assets that they've accumulated, and that's where you just want to be slow and steady wins the race. You want to maybe gear it out to another age, or maybe really reduce your expenses and say, I can live without this. Maybe I don't have to go out to restaurants 3 times a week. Maybe I'm going to go and cut that down to 3 times a month. So there's different ways on how you could really cherry pick it if you truly do want to retire. And that's what we do. We try to help you guys out, understanding where you are at point A, where you want to get to at point B, how to make sure that your point A to point B is most successful and efficient, and then from point B until, as morbid as it may sound, date of death, DOD. And that's saying, okay, at that point B, I want to make sure that I'm getting more away from that accumulation-based strategy, more to a wealth preservation and distribution strategy. So you're having all your monies work for you simultaneously, and each one is designated to its specific optimized lane. If you found value in this video, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call at any time. It's 1-800-566-1002. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.